So Kenyan runner Eliud Kipchoge is the fastest man in the world. Now, what I mean by that is he is the first man to ever break the 2 hour marathon barrier, which is a barrier we've been trying to break since the running boom of the 1970s. Now, I remember watching him finish the race in disbelief and thinking, how did he do that? He's the first man to ever do that. What has he done differently in comparison to the past 50 years we've been trying to break it? And instinctively, I looked down at his running shoes. He was wearing a prototype of the Nike Alpha Fly, which is a new leader of marathon racing shoes, which features a rigid carbon fiber plate in the midsole to sort of act like a spring during the gait cycle. Now, you're probably thinking, he's wearing a shoe that acts like a spring. That's probably doing a lot of the work for him. So it's easy to see why he broke the record. But I actually thought that too initially. But now I realize that that is a facade for a larger explanation. So let me give a little background information. My name is Wyatt Weber, and I'm a runner. And while I'm nowhere near as fast as Kipchoge, I think I'm not too shabby. I'm a sneakerhead, and I love wearing and testing different types of sneakers. And I always look to better my times and improve my performance when running. Now, there are hundreds of different types of running brands and hundreds of different types of shoes. How do you know which shoe to run in? And more importantly, how can a shoe improve a runner's training condition or performance condition? And what I mean by that is how can a shoe improve a runner's efficiency and speed, but also lower the injury rate so a runner can keep running for longer? Now, I thought the best way to answer this question was to make my own running shoe. So that's what I did. And I call it the trifecta because it has three parts: the upper, the midsole, and the outsole, all which have unique features that make it distinct from most modern running shoes. And just for running shoe nerds, this is a 9.4 ounce shoe for a size 12, and it has a 20 millimeter stack height. So I'm going to go over the features of the shoe right now. So let's start with the upper. Think of your feet. The narrowest part is in the heel, the widest part is in the midfoot, and your toes splay out with the longest part being at that big toe. This is what your average running shoe looks like. And you can see that it's kind of pointy, it's symmetrical with the longest part being about the middle of the shoe, and it has a little narrower toe box. Shoes have always sort of looked like this. Shoes have been historically thought of being more attractive if they're pointy, and nobody wants to get made fun of for their wide clown shoes. But the problem with this is that over 50% of people are wearing shoes that are too narrow for them, but only 1% wear shoes that are too wide for them. So this means people are wearing shoes that are too small for them, and this can actually lead to pain and foot injury. So I thought the best way to negate this was to fit my shoe with a wide upper and one that's asymmetrical with the longest part being at the big toe, so it's shaped like a foot. This can help prevent some of those injuries that you can have from your feet or your shoes being too small for your feet. So let's look at the midsole part. So the midsole of the normal running shoe, you can see there's a little more cushion in the heel. And in theory, this is supposed to provide a bit more shock absorption during your foot strike when you land on your heel. But there's a problem with this. Landing on your heel can actually be the cause of overpronation, which is when your heel rolls too far inward during your foot strike. Now, doesn't everybody's ankle roll inward when they foot strike? Yes. That is what actually causes your ankle, your arch to compress and act like a rigid spring when you run. But it's a problem when it rolls too far inward because this can be the cause of injury. So on my shoe, I chose a midsole that has no heel drop and that has equal cushioning throughout the heel and the midfoot to sort of offset any chance of overpronation. And you can also see that it's a little thinner than most running shoes, the midsole. There's a little less cushioning. And this is because a sports health study has shown that as they lower the heel drop and cushioning in a shoe, less runners were heel striking and more landing on the midfoot or the forefoot. Their ground contact time decreased and their cadence, which is steps per minute, actually increased. So as they were lowering cushioning and heel drop, more runners were running more efficiently. Now, if that's the case, you're probably thinking, why don't you just get rid of all the cushioning or make it a minimally cushioned shoe? Well, the problem with that would be it's been shown that as you transfer from a neutral shoe like this, which is normal cushioning, to a shoe with little to no cushioning, that actually raises your injury rate. So this is a good in between the normal running shoe with just regular cushioning and a minimal to no cushioned shoe. So you're not getting too low where it can raise your injury rate, but it's still lower than normal to give you more of that efficiency that comes with having a lower stack height shoe. And then let's move to the last part, which is the outsole. So I fitted this shoe with a Continental rubber compound outsole, which actually has increased grip on wet and slippery surfaces, especially on roads. And so this is because it's been shown that runners who run, they had runners run a course and they had increased grip that made their times greater than if they ran with shoes that had less grip. So it only made sense to give improved grip to my shoe. And I actually ran with this shoe on a test run on Christmas where it was really rainy and the weather wasn't good. And I actually got little to no slip in the shoe, so it actually performed great. So now that we've shown that running shoes can help a runner's performance condition, the question is how much? And I turned to my coach, Katie McDonald, who coached our boys cross country team here at Bow High School and also ran in the Olympic marathon trials in 1984. And she acknowledged the advancement in running shoe technologies and said that it's been a natural progression. But she ultimately said, fast times don't come without training. It's the training that's really improving people. So ultimately, it's not so much about the shoe as it is the training and the hard work you put into it. So I initially thought that Elliot Kipchoge's less than 2 hour marathon was due to the shoes that he was wearing, the advanced shoes. But now I really see that it's more the training, the hard training days, the days and nights he's put into it, the rigorous training that no shoe could really make up for. So could someone wear a shoe like this and automatically have an under 2 hour marathon? And the answer is going to be no. So how can a shoe affect a runner's performance condition? And it's simple. There's no shortcuts in life. And while a shoe can help, ultimately it's going to be that training that is the big factor when it comes to that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wyatt. Amazing job. What kind of questions do you have for Wyatt this morning about his project or about his research?
I have a question.
Thanks. Go ahead, Alex.
How exactly did you put the shoe together? Like, did you just glue different parts together?
Wyatt, did you hear Alex's question? All right. Wyatt seems to have lost his internet connection for the moment. So maybe we can come back to him. Alex, how'd you put your shoes together, Wyatt?
So what I did was I had the midsole was kind of what I based it off of, and I cut the original upper. Well, I didn't cut it off, but I poured boiling water to remove the upper, and I cut the original midsole off of it. And then I first put on the outsole that's on it now by cutting up the outsole of the Ultra Boost 20 off of the shoe, or the Ultra Boost 19. And then I cut it into strips so it could still flex and it wouldn't hurt that. And then I put it on using super glue. And I wasn't sure how it was going to stay on, how well it was going to stay on, but it actually held on pretty well when I ran in the water.
Awesome. Thank you, Wyatt.
And then for the upper, I also use super glue. I use super glue for both of them. Yeah.
All right. Does anyone else have a question for Wyatt before we move on? Okay.
Well, I got a question for you. Okay. How long did it take you to create the shoe as a whole?
So I would say it took me over 35 hours. So it was about like the 37, 38-hour mark because I had to like, it took me way longer than I thought it would take to cut off the outsole of the outsole off the shoe that it was first on. And then, I also had to like test it as well, make sure that it actually worked.